13 Ways to Stop Being Treated Like an Option, Become a Priority is not a guide about changing others. It is a story about returning to yourself. And once you do, everything changes. Let's begin. 1. Value yourself first. People treat you the way you treat yourself. This sentence sounds simple, almost cliché, yet it holds one of the deepest truths about human relationships. The way others see you, respect you, and prioritize you is often a reflection of how you see, respect, and prioritize yourself. If you accept being an option, you teach people that your place in their life is negotiable. And once that lesson is learned, it is rarely unlearned. Valuing yourself first does not mean becoming arrogant, selfish, or emotionally unavailable. It means recognizing your own worth before asking anyone else to recognize it for you. It means understanding that your time, energy, love, and presence are valuable and should not be handed out to those who treat them carelessly. The invisible signal you send. Every interaction sends a signal. When you consistently show up for people who barely show up for you, you signal that your time is less important than theirs. When you forgive repeated disrespect without change, you signal that your boundaries are flexible. When you stay silent about your needs because you're afraid of being too much, you signal that your comfort comes second. People don't wake up one day and decide to treat you as an option. They do it gradually, unconsciously, responding to the standards you set or fail to set. If you tolerate being overlooked, ignored, or have, others will assume that this level of treatment is acceptable to you. This is not about blaming yourself. Many people fall into this pattern because they were taught directly or indirectly that love must be earned, that being chosen requires sacrifice, or that wanting more makes them demanding. Over time, this belief becomes internalized, shaping how they show up in relationships. Choosing yourself is not abandonment. One of the biggest fears people have about valuing themselves. First is the fear of losing others. They worry that setting boundaries, asking for respect, or walking away from poor treatment will lead to loneliness. But the truth is this: choosing yourself does not mean abandoning others. It means abandoning the version of yourself that accepts less than you deserve. When you choose yourself, you stop negotiating your worth. You stop proving, convincing, or performing for love. You allow relationships to meet you where you are, instead of constantly lowering yourself to meet them. Choosing yourself may cause some people to leave, but those people were never committed to you. They were committed to the access they had to you. A story: Anna and the Waiting Room. Anna was the kind of person everyone loved to have around. She listened deeply, showed up consistently, and always made space for others. In her friendships and romantic relationships, she gave without hesitation. She believed that love meant patience, understanding, and endurance. When she met Daniel, she felt an instant connection. He was charming, intelligent, and emotionally complex. But he was also inconsistent. Some days he was attentive and warm. Other days, distant and unreachable. Plans were often canceled last minute. Messages went unanswered for hours or days. Anna told herself he was busy. She told herself he needed time. She told herself that if she were just patient enough, supportive enough, loving enough, he would eventually choose her. Months passed. She rearranged her schedule to fit his availability. She silenced her disappointment to avoid conflict. She accepted vague promises instead of clear commitment. Without realizing it, Anna had placed herself in a waiting room, waiting for someone else to decide her value. One evening, after Daniel canceled an important plan for the third time that week, Anna sat alone in her apartment. She felt a familiar ache in her chest, not heartbreak, but something quieter and heavier: self-betrayal. She realized that the pain wasn't coming from Daniel's behavior alone. It was coming from her willingness to accept it. That night, Anna asked herself a difficult question. If someone treated my best friend this way, what would I tell her to do? The answer was immediate and uncomfortable. The turning point: valuing yourself first often begins with discomfort. It requires honesty about what you have been tolerating and why. For Anna, it meant acknowledging that she had been choosing potential over reality, hope over evidence. The next time Daniel reached out after a period of silence, Anna responded differently. She was calm, respectful, and clear. She told him that she valued consistency and effort, and that the current dynamic was no longer acceptable to her. Daniel was surprised. He apologized, but nothing changed. And for the first time, Anna didn't try to fix it. She didn't argue or she simply stepped back. Walking away wasn't dramatic. It wasn't fueled by anger. It was quiet, grounded, and deeply so. What changed when she chose herself? In the weeks that followed, Anna felt lonely at times, but she also felt lighter. Her energy returned to her. She began investing in her own life again. Her friendships, her passions, her growth. Slowly, something shifted. People began treating her differently, not because she demanded it, but because she no longer accepted less. Conversations became more balanced. Invitations were more intentional. And when she eventually entered a new relationship, she noticed something profound. She didn't have to fight to be chosen. She already had chosen herself. 2. Stop over. After Anna walked away from Daniel, she believed she had learned the most important lesson of all. Value yourself first. But self-worth, she soon discovered, is not a switch you flip once. It is a pattern you slowly unlearn. And one of the hardest patterns to break was overgiving. For years, Anna had believed that love was something you earned. Not consciously, perhaps, but emotionally. She believed that if she gave enough, supported enough, stayed long enough, eventually someone would recognize her devotion and choose her fully. Overgiving had become her language of love, her survival strategy, and her quiet hope. The hidden cost of overgiving often disguises itself as kindness, loyalty, and generosity. On the surface, it looks admirable, but beneath it lies fear, the fear of being replaceable, the fear of not being enough, the fear of being left. When you overgive, you are not giving freely. You are giving with expectation. You may not say it out loud, but deep inside you are hoping that your effort will secure love, commitment, or appreciation. And when that appreciation doesn't come, resentment quietly grows. Anna began to recognize this pattern in herself. She replayed past relationships in her mind and noticed how often she had stepped in to fill gaps that were never hers to fill. She had been the one to initiate conversations, smooth conflicts, adjust schedules, and emotionally carry the relationship. She mistook emotional labor for intimacy. Why overgiving pushes people away. There is a painful paradox in relationships. The more you overgive, the less you are valued. Not because people are cruel, but because human nature adapts. When someone receives without effort, they stop perceiving the value of what they're receiving. Overgiving creates an imbalance. One person becomes the giver, the other the receiver. Over time, the receiver unconsciously associates the relationship with comfort rather than contribution. They don't feel inspired to rise. They feel entitled to stay as they are. Love does not grow in imbalance. It grows in mutual presence, mutual effort, and mutual respect. Love is not a transaction. One of the most freeing realizations Anna had was this: love is not a transaction. You don't earn it by doing more, sacrificing more, or tolerating more. Love is not a reward for enduring. When you treat love like a transaction, you start keeping invisible scorecards. You remember every time you showed up, every compromise you made, every tear you swallowed. And when the other person doesn't match your effort, you feel unseen and unchosen. True love is alignment. It happens when two people naturally meet each other's energy, not when one person bends until they break. A new relationship, the same pattern. Months later, Anna met Lucas. He was different from Daniel, emotionally available, communicative, and kind. Their connection felt easy, refreshing. But slowly, almost imperceptibly, Anna felt the old instinct return. She replied instantly. She rearranged her plans. She anticipated his needs before he voiced them. She gave advice, reassurance, and emotional support even when she herself was exhausted. Lucas appreciated her. He thanked her. But over time, Anna noticed that she was doing more again. Carrying more. Giving more. One night, after canceling her own plans to help Lucas through a stressful situation, Anna felt a familiar heaviness settle in. It wasn't that Lucas asked too much, it was that she offered too much. This time, however, she noticed it. The moment of awareness, growth often arrives quietly. disguised as discomfort. Anna sat with herself and asked, "Am I giving from abundance or from fear?" The answer mattered. Giving from abundance feels free, joyful, and energizing. Giving from fear feels urgent, anxious, and draining. Anna realized she wasn't overgiving because Lucas needed it. She was overgiving because part of her still believed she needed to prove her worth. That realization didn't come with shame. It came with compassion. Choosing balance over sacrifice. Stopping overgiving doesn't mean becoming cold or withholding. It means allowing space for the other person to show up. It means resisting the urge to rescue, fix, or overextend. Anna began to pause before saying yes. She allowed silence. She let Lucas initiate sometimes, even if it felt uncomfortable. And something unexpected happened. He stepped forward. When Anna stopped doing everything, Lucas had the opportunity to do something. Balance invited presence. Why overgiving blocks real intimacy? Overgiving can feel like love, but it often blocks intimacy. When one person overfunctions, the other under. The relationship becomes about roles, not connection. Real intimacy requires space, space for effort, for longing, for choice. When you give too much, you remove the other person's opportunity to choose you freely. Love that is chosen is far more powerful than love that is provided. Am I giving because I want to, or because I'm afraid to stop? Each honest answer brought her closer to balance. She began to trust that if someone needed constant overgiving to stay, and if someone left because she stopped love grows where effort is mutual. Love no longer felt like work, it felt like flow. They give because they want to, not because they're afraid to lose you. 3. Set boundaries, then enforce them. Once Anna learned to stop overgiving, she believed the hardest part was behind her. She felt calmer, more balanced, more present in her own life. But soon, she discovered another truth that was even more confronting. Setting boundaries was not enough. The real challenge was enforcing them. Boundaries are easy to talk about in theory. In practice, they test everything: your fear of loss, your need for harmony, and your tolerance for discomfort. A boundary without enforcement is merely a request. And requests, when ignored, slowly teach others that your limits are optional. The illusion of spoken boundaries. Anna had always been someone who communicated. She explained her feelings clearly, expressed her needs gently, and believed that if people truly cared, they would understand. But she began to notice a painful pattern. Many people understood her boundaries perfectly and crossed them anyway. They apologized. They promised change. They explained themselves. And Anna, wanting to be fair, gave them more chances. She realized something unsettling. People don't respect boundaries because you articulate them beautifully. They respect boundaries because they experience consequences when they cross them. Respect is not built through words alone, it is built through consistency. What boundaries really are? Boundaries are often misunderstood as walls, cold, rigid barriers meant to keep people out. But healthy boundaries are not about exclusion. They are about definition. They define what is acceptable, what is sustainable, and what aligns with your values. A boundary is not, "Please don't do this again." A boundary is, "If this happens again, I will respond differently." Boundaries are not about controlling others. They are about controlling your response. A familiar test. Anna's understanding of boundaries was soon tested in her relationship with Lucas. One evening, Lucas canceled plans they had made days in advance. He apologized, explained he was overwhelmed, and asked if they could reschedule sometime next week. In the past, Anna would have minimized her disappointment. She would have reassured him that it was fine, that she understood, that she was flexible. But this time, she felt the quiet signal inside her, the one she had learned to trust. She calmly told him that consistency mattered to her, and that last-minute cancellations affected how safe she felt in a relationship. Lucas listened. He apologized again. And then he did it again 2 weeks later. The moment of enforcement. This was the moment Anna used to miss. This time, instead of explaining herself again, she enforced her boundary. She didn't argue. She didn't guilt him. She didn't raise her voice. She simply declined to reschedule. Lucas was surprised, confused, slightly defensive. And Anna felt something unfamiliar but powerful: integrity. She was no longer asking to be respected. She was acting as if she already deserved it. Why enforcement feels so hard? Enforcing boundaries often triggers fear. Fear of being seen as difficult. Fear of hurting someone. Fear of being abandoned. For people like Anna, empathetic, emotionally attuned, conflict-averse enforcement can feel cruel. But the truth is this: allowing repeated boundary violations is not kindness. It is self. Every time you ignore a crossed boundary, you send a message to them and to yourself that your needs are negotiable. The consequences teach people how to treat you. When Anna enforced her boundary, something shifted. Lucas adjusted. Not immediately, not perfectly, but noticeably. He became more intentional. He communicated more clearly. And when he couldn't meet her standard, he owned it without excuses. For the first time, Anna felt grounded instead of anxious. She wasn't waiting to see if she mattered. She knew where she stood, not because Lucas changed, but because she did. When boundaries reveal truth, boundaries don't push the right people away, they reveal the wrong ones. As Anna grew firmer in her standards, some people in her life reacted poorly. A few friendships became strained. One long-term connection faded entirely. It hurt, but it also clarified. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will always resist your boundaries. That resistance is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're doing something necessary. Boundaries are standards, not ultimatums. Anna learned that boundaries don't need drama. They don't require threats or ultimatums. They simply require follow-through. A standard says, "This is how I live." An ultimatum says, "Change or else." Standards are quiet. They are embodied. They are lived. The internal boundary, the most important boundary Anna set, was not external, it was internal. She stopped negotiating with herself. She stopped overriding her discomfort. She stopped abandoning her intuition to maintain connection. She learned to say, "This doesn't feel right," and that's enough. Respect begins where tolerance ends. Respect is not something you demand from others. It is something you model for yourself. When you tolerate disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional neglect, you normalize it. When you stop tolerating it, you reset the standard. Anna realized that every boundary she enforced strengthened her and self-trust, she discovered, was more powerful than approval. Love thrives within limits. Contrary to what many believe, boundaries don't limit love, they protect it. Love without boundaries becomes resentment. Connection without standards becomes exhaustion. Compassion without self-respect becomes Boundaries create safety. Safety allows love to grow. 4. Say no without explaining. By the time Anna learned how to set and enforce boundaries, something subtle but profound had changed inside her. She no longer felt constantly braced for disappointment. She no longer rehearsed conversations in her head, preparing to defend her needs. Yet there was one habit still deeply ingrained in her: the instinct to explain herself. For most of her life, Anna believed that clarity required justification. If she said no, she followed it with reasons. If she declined an invitation, she softened it with apologies. If she chose herself, she wrapped the choice in reassurance so others wouldn't feel uncomfortable. She didn't realize that in doing so, she was still asking for permission. The need to be understood. Anna had always wanted to be understood. She believed that if people knew her reasons, they would become more patient, more accepting. So she explained herself carefully, often excessively afraid that a simple no would sound harsh, unkind, or selfish. But explanations come with an invisible cost. The more you explain, the more you invite negotiation. You turn a decision into a discussion. You give others the impression that your boundary is flexible if they argue well enough. Anna had spent years negotiating her own peace, a small moment that changed everything. The lesson arrived in an ordinary moment. A former friend, someone Anna had slowly distanced herself from after years of emotional imbalance, reached out unexpectedly. The message was warm, nostalgic, and heavy with implication. They wanted to meet, just to talk. Anna felt the familiar tightening in her chest. She already knew the pattern. The conversation would circle old wounds. She would listen, absorb, reassure. She would leave feeling drained and unseen. This time, she didn't want to go. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as her mind began assembling explanations. I've been busy. I'm focusing on myself right now. I don't think it would be healthy. Then she paused. Why did no feel like a crime that required a defense? The first unexplained no. Anna typed a single sentence. Thank you for reaching out. I won't be able to meet. That was it. No apology. No justification. No emotional cushioning. She pressed send and felt a rush of anxiety, followed by something unexpected. Relief. The response came later, polite but distant. There was no argument, no negotiation, no dramatic fallout. And in that quiet space, Anna realized something important. The world didn't collapse when she stopped explaining. Why explaining weakens boundaries? Explanations are often given in good faith, but they send an unintended message. My no is conditional. When you explain, you open the door for, but what if? Just this once. You're misunderstanding. People who respect you don't need explanations. People who don't respect you use explanations as leverage. Anna began to see how often her explanations had been used. Against her, not maliciously, but conveniently. Her kindness had made her accessible. Her empathy had made her persuadable. Saying no is a complete sentence. A calm no is not aggressive. It is not cold. It is not unkind. It is complete. Anna practiced saying no in small, quiet ways. Declining plans without turning down requests without offering alternatives. Saying I can't without explaining why. Each time, the discomfort lasted a little less. Each time, her sense of self grew stronger. The fear beneath the explanation. At its core, over-explaining is about fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of disappointing others. Fear of being rejected. Anna realized that she had been trying to control others' reactions by over-explaining her choices. But control, she learned, is an illusion. You cannot manage how people feel about your boundaries. You can only manage how you honor them. A test in her relationship. The lesson was tested again with Lucas. One weekend, he asked her to change plans she had been looking forward to for weeks. It wasn't urgent, just more convenient for him. Anna felt the old reflex rise. Explain, justify, soften. Instead, she took a breath and said, that doesn't work for me. Lucas paused. He waited for the explanation that never came. And then he said, okay, I understand. In that moment, Anna saw clearly. The right people don't need you to convince them to respect you. Peace over performance. Saying no without explaining freed Anna from performing emotional labor. She no longer felt responsible for managing everyone's comfort. She realized that protecting her peace did not require permission. Peace, she learned, is not loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't persuade. It simply the power of quiet confidence. There is a unique power in calm certainty, not defensiveness, not indifference, just grounded clarity. When Anna stopped explaining, people adjusted. Some leaned in with more respect. Some drifted away. But none could claim confusion about where she stood. Clarity, she realized, is kindness. When guilt shows up, guilt still appeared from time to time. Old conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. But Anna learned to sit with guilt without abandoning it. She reminded herself, discomfort is not danger. Guilt is not proof of wrongdoing. Saying no does not make her unkind. The internal no. The most transformative no Anna learned to say was internal. No to overextending. No to self-betrayal. No to explaining her worth. She stopped arguing with her own intuition. She trusted it. 5. Don't chase, be still. After learning how to say no without explaining, Anna noticed a deeper stillness entering her life. Not the heavy silence of avoidance, but a grounded, calm one that no longer rushed to fill gaps or chase reassurance. For the first time, she wasn't reacting. She was responding. And sometimes, she was doing neither. Stillness, Anna discovered, was uncomfortable before it became powerful. The old instinct to chase. Chasing had once felt natural to her. If someone pulled away, she leaned in. If communication slowed, she tried harder. She believed that effort could close distance, that presence could repair absence. And sometimes it worked temporarily. But chasing never created security. It only delayed clarity. Chasing came from fear. Fear of losing connection. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that silence meant rejection. So, Anna filled silence with words, space with effort, uncertainty with reassurance. She mistook movement for love. The shift toward stillness. Stillness didn't mean indifference. It meant restraint. It meant allowing space to exist without rushing to fix it. It meant resisting the urge to prove her value to someone who hadn't yet recognized it. It meant trusting that what was meant for her wouldn't require pursuit. Stillness was not passive. It was intentional. A moment of distance. The lesson arrived quietly. Again, through Lucas. After weeks of consistent connection, his responses slowed. Messages became shorter. Calls were postponed. Nothing dramatic, just a subtle pulling away. Anna noticed immediately. In the past, she would have checked in, offered reassurance, asked if something was wrong. She would have chased clarity, hoping to prevent loss. This time, she paused. She didn't withdraw in anger. She didn't play games. She simply matched the space he created with calm, self-respecting stillness, letting silence speak. Silence is often misunderstood as weakness. But silence, when chosen, is clarity. Anna let the silence exist. She focused on her life. She returned her energy to herself. She didn't monitor his behavior or interpret every delay. She stayed present where she was. Days passed. And in that space, something revealed itself. Lucas noticed. Absence as a mirror. When Anna stopped chasing, Lucas felt the difference. Not because she disappeared, but because she stopped overreaching. The dynamic shifted. He became more attentive, more present. Not because she demanded it, not because she explained it, but because she allowed him to feel the absence of her effort. Absence, she learned, is not punishment. It is information. Why chasing diminishes value. Chasing communicates urgency, not worth. It tells the other person that you are more invested in keeping the connection than they are in choosing it. When you chase, you remove the other person's responsibility to show up. You do the emotional work for both of you. Stillness returns responsibility to where it belongs, the strength of being still. Being still required Anna to sit with uncertainty, to trust that clarity would come without force, to accept that some people would drift away if she stopped chasing. And she let them. Because what stays only when chased was never truly choosing her. Stillness reveals intention. When Anna stopped chasing, relationships revealed their truth quickly. Those who valued her leaned in. Those who benefited from her effort faded out. Stillness filtered her connections more effectively than confrontation ever had. The difference between distance and detachment. Anna learned the difference between healthy distance and emotional detachment. Distance says, I trust myself enough to wait. Detachment says, I no longer care. Stillness was not about indifference. It was about dignity. Trusting the natural rhythm. Real connection has rhythm. It breathes. It expands and contracts naturally. Chasing disrupts rhythm. Stillness restores it. Anna began to trust that what was aligned with her would not require pursuit. That love, that needed chasing, was love that required convincing. When silence feels loud, there were moments when silence felt unbearable. When her phone stayed quiet longer than she expected. When old fears resurfaced. In those moments, Anna reminded herself, silence is not rejection. Distance is not abandonment. Stillness is not failure. Sometimes, silence is simply space doing its work. Choosing self-respect over anxiety. Each time, Anna chose stillness over chasing. She strengthened herself. She no longer chased replies, reassurance, validation. She waited not in hope, but in certainty. 6. Stay mysterious. After Anna learned the power of stillness, she noticed another subtle shift in her relationships. Conversations felt different. Not because she was hiding, but because she was no longer overexposing herself. She wasn't filling silence with stories. She wasn't narrating her inner world in real time. For the first time, she allowed parts of herself to remain unspoken. And in that quiet restraint, something changed. Mystery, Anna discovered, is not secrecy. It is discernment. The habit of For much of her life, Anna had believed that openness created closeness. She shared freely her thoughts, her fears, her hopes, her wounds. She believed that if someone knew everything about her, they would understand her. And if they understood her, they would stay. But understanding does not come from information alone, and closeness does not require total access. Oversharing had often left Anna feeling exposed, not connected. She would reveal something vulnerable too quickly, only to realize that the other person hadn't earned that level of intimacy yet. She had mistaken availability for depth. What mystery really means. Staying mysterious does not mean playing games, withholding affection, or being emotionally closed off. It means allowing intimacy to unfold gradually. It means protecting your inner world until trust has been built. Mystery is not about manipulation. It is about pacing. Anna learned that some parts of her story were sacred. They didn't need to be explained immediately. They didn't need to be understood by everyone. They needed to be honored. A subtle change in dynamic. With Lucas, Anna noticed how the dynamic shifted when she stopped over-explaining herself. She no longer responded instantly with long messages. She no longer unpacked every feeling in real time. She allowed pauses. She allowed curiosity. Lucas began asking more thoughtful questions. He leaned in, not because she pulled away, but because she no longer laid everything bare at once. Interest, she realized, grows in space. Why knowing everything kills curiosity? When someone knows everything too quickly, there is nothing left to discover. Curiosity fades. Presence weakens. Anna understood now why mystery has always been magnetic. It invites attention. It creates engagement. It signals self. People are drawn to what feels grounded, not exposed. Keeping parts of yourself sacred, Anna began to decide consciously what to share, when to share, and with whom. Not everyone needed access to her deepest fears, her past wounds, her future dreams. Those were not secrets. They were treasures. She realized that intimacy is not about revealing everything. It's about revealing the right things to the right people at the right time. Mystery and staying mysterious was also an act of When Anna stopped explaining every emotion, she stopped seeking validation. She trusted her experience without needing it to be mirrored immediately. She no longer needed to be understood to feel secure. The comfort of being unknowable. There was comfort in not being fully knowable, in allowing parts of herself to exist quietly, without commentary. She felt less reactive, less vulnerable to less dependent on others' responses. Mystery gave her autonomy, attraction without effort. Anna noticed something unexpected. She didn't need to do anything to be interesting. She simply existed, present, grounded, and people felt it. They leaned in. They paid attention. They wanted to know more, not because she withheld, but because she was whole. The difference between guarded and mysterious. Anna was careful not to confuse mystery with emotional unavailability. She was open, but not exposed. Warm, but not porous. Present, but not performative. Mystery was not about distance. It was about depth. Letting people earn access. One of the most empowering realizations Anna had was this. Access is earned. Just because someone is curious doesn't mean they are entitled to answers. Just because someone asks doesn't mean you must reveal. Anna learned to respond with presence instead of explanation, with curiosity instead of confession, silence as elegance. Sometimes, the most powerful response was silence, not awkward, not defensive, but calm and Silence communicated confidence. Silence communicated safety. Silence communicated mystery. 7. Mirror their energy. After learning to stay mysterious, Anna felt more grounded than ever before. She was no longer spilling herself into every connection. She was no longer rushing intimacy or filling silence with effort. Yet there was still one subtle habit. She hadn't fully released the instinct to give more than she received. Not out of desperation, not out of fear, but out of habit. She had been conditioned to believe that consistency meant constancy, that showing up the same way, regardless of how others showed up for her, was a sign of maturity and emotional strength. But she was beginning to realize that consistency without reciprocity was not strength, it was The difference between matching and chasing. Mirroring energy is often misunderstood. It is not about playing games. It is not about punishment. It is not about keeping score. It is about alignment. When Anna mirrored energy, she wasn't withdrawing to provoke a reaction. She was simply responding honestly to what was being offered, no more, no less. She was no longer overcompensating for someone else's lack of presence. A subtle imbalance revealed. With Lucas, the connection was still warm, but it wasn't always equal. Some weeks, he was attentive and engaged. Other weeks, distracted and distant. Before, Anna would remain constant through the fluctuation. She would initiate. She would check in. She would hold the thread of connection alone. This time, she noticed the imbalance and didn't rush to correct it. When Lucas responded with brief messages, she replied with the same tone. When he delayed plans, she didn't reorganize her life to accommodate him. When he stepped back emotionally, she gave him space without anxiety. Not coldly, not dramatically, just honestly. Why overgiving distorts dynamics? Anna realized that when she gave more than she received, she unintentionally distorted the dynamic. She created a situation where her effort masked the other person's lack of engagement. Overgiving made it unclear whether the connection was mutual or merely sustained by her energy. Mirroring clarified everything. Energy never lies. Words can be misleading. Intentions can be confusing. But energy is honest, comma. When someone is invested, their energy shows it. When they are unsure, distracted, or unready, their energy reveals that too. Anna stopped listening only to words. She started responding to energy, comma. And the truth became impossible to ignore. The courage to step back. Stepping back was harder than stepping forward. It required Anna to tolerate uncertainty without filling it. To sit with silence without interpreting it. To let someone show her who they were without interference. Mirroring energy meant allowing the relationship to reveal its natural rhythm. If it slowed, she slowed. If it deepened, she deepened. If it faded, she let it. When he noticed, eventually, Lucas noticed the shift. "You've been quieter lately," he said one evening. Anna didn't apologize. She didn't explain. She simply said, "I've been matching what's there." The words were calm, neutral, honest. Lucas paused. For the first time, the dynamic was visible to both of them, not softened by her effort, not obscured by her consistency. Matching energy is not withdrawal. Anna learned that mirroring energy was not about pulling away to test someone. It was about removing illusion. When you stop giving more than you receive, reality emerges. Some people rise to meet you. Some people fade. Some people stay exactly the same. All outcomes bring clarity, self-respect in motion. Matching energy felt like self-respect in motion. It said, "I see what you're offering, and I will meet you there. I will not carry this alone. I will not audition for consistency." It allowed Anna to remain open without being overextended. The fear of being petty. At first, Anna worried that mirroring energy made her seem petty or immature. She had been taught that emotional intelligence meant staying steady, regardless of others' behavior. That was the moment she knew. She wasn't being chosen freely. She was being considered. Love should not require positioning. Anna had spent years learning how to stop chasing, stop overgiving, stop explaining. Now, this lesson demanded something even quieter. Refusal. Refusal to position herself. Refusal to outperform an unknown rival. Refusal to remain emotionally available while someone decided her worth. She realized that the desire to compete wasn't about love, it was about fear. Fear that walking away meant losing something. Fear that she might be wrong. Fear that this was as good as it gets. But fear had never led her to peace. The inner decision. Before Anna said anything to Lucas, she decided something within herself. I will not stay where I am not clearly wanted. That decision didn't need an audience. It didn't need validation. It didn't even need to be spoken. It changed everything. Why walking away is not a threat. Walking away is often misunderstood as a tactic to provoke urgency or regret. But Anna wasn't trying to force a choice. She was removing herself from indecision. There is a profound difference. She wasn't saying, choose me or lose me. She was saying, I choose clarity. The conversation that wasn't dramatic? When the moment came, it was simple. Lucas spoke about uncertainty again carefully, almost apologetically. He wasn't cruel. He wasn't dismissive. He was honest about not being sure. Anna listened calmly. Then she said, softly but firmly, I don't stay in situations where I'm one of several possibilities. No accusation. No demand. New ultimatum. Just truth. What she didn't say, she didn't say. I've been patient. I've been good to you. I deserve more. Not because those things weren't true, but because she didn't need to justify leaving. She had learned. Explanations invite debate. Decisions end conversations. Walking away before resentment. One of the quietest forms of self-respect is leaving before resentment forms. Anna knew that if she stayed, something would erode inside her. Not love, but dignity. And once dignity is compromised, no amount of affection can restore balance. She chose to leave whole instead of staying hopeful, The silence after choosing yourself. The days that followed were not loud. There was no constant checking of her phone, no spiraling questions. Just a gentle ache and an unexpected calm beneath it. She missed the idea of what could have been, but she didn't miss the uncertainty. That was new. Why competing shrinks you. Competing for a spot forces you into performance mode. You become strategic instead of sincere, reactive instead of grounded. You stop asking what you want and start asking what will keep you chosen. Anna had done that before. She had lost herself slowly, politely, almost invisibly. She would not do it again. Returning to what she had set aside. As Anna settled into herself, she noticed the things she had slowly abandoned over the years. Her sketchbook, untouched for months. Books she had meant to read. Music she loved, but rarely played. None of these things had been taken from her deliberately. They had simply been edged out by emotional preoccupation. She brought them back gently, not to distract herself, not to stay busy, but to remember who she was when no one was watching. A life that doesn't revolve. Anna began to understand that a full life is not one packed with activity. It is one that does not revolve around absence. Her joy no longer depended on being chosen. Her peace no longer depended on attention. Her days no longer paused in anticipation. She lived forward. Passion changes energy. Something subtle shifted in her presence. When Anna talked about the things she loved, her voice carried more certainty. When she moved through her days, there was less urgency, less seeking. People noticed, not because she was trying to be impressive, but because she was engaged. Passion has a way of grounding people in themselves. It creates a quiet confidence that doesn't ask to be seen. The magnetism of wholeness. Anna didn't become magnetic by withdrawing from the world. She became magnetic by fully inhabiting it. She showed up to conversations without an agenda. She listened without scanning for interest. She laughed without wondering how it landed. There was nothing to prove. Wholeness had replaced hunger. Relationships as additions, not anchors. When new connections entered her life, they felt different. She didn't rush them. She didn't imagine futures prematurely. She didn't adjust her life to fit them. She allowed people to enter as additions, not anchors. If they stayed, it was because they fit. If they left, her life remained intact. The fear of missing out faded. One of the most surprising changes was how little Anna feared missing out. She was no longer watching others' lives from a distance, wondering what she lacked. She was too present in her own to compare. Comparison requires distance from yourself. Presence dissolves it. Creating a life she didn't want to escape. Anna had once looked to relationships as refuge from boredom, loneliness, or uncertainty. Now, her life itself felt like home. Not perfect, not always easy, but aligned. She didn't need someone to save her from it. Full does not mean busy. Anna learned that fullness is not busyness. She left space in her days for rest, for solitude, for boredom. She stopped filling every silence with stimulation. Stillness no longer frightened her. When love no longer feels like rescue, because her life was full, love felt different when it appeared. It wasn't an answer to a question. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't a destination. It was a shared experience. And if it ended, Her life would continue, not in collapse, but in continuity. Passion makes you unforgettable. People remembered Anna, not because she tried to stand out, but because she stood rooted. She spoke with intention. She moved with purpose. She lived with curiosity. Her presence lingered, not because she demanded attention, but because she didn't need it. The quiet confidence of not waiting. Anna was no longer waiting for weekends, messages, or milestones to feel alive. Life was happening now, and she was in it. 10. Let go of people who make you feel unsure. By the time Anna reached this stage of her life, she was no longer chasing clarity. She wasn't searching for validation, reassurance, or emotional certainty from others. Her life was full, her boundaries steady, her inner world grounded. And yet, one final lesson remained subtle, but decisive. She had to let go of people who made her feel unsure, not confused, not challenged, not imperfect, unsure. The quiet difference between doubt and growth. Anna had learned that growth sometimes feels uncomfortable. It asks you to stretch, to reflect, to face yourself honestly. That discomfort, however, felt very different from uncertainty. Growth expanded her. Uncertainty diminished her. Growth felt grounded, even when it was hard. Uncertainty felt anxious, even when nothing was wrong. She began to understand that feeling unsure around someone was not a personal flaw, it was information. How unsureness shows up. Unsureness is rarely dramatic. It doesn't arrive as obvious disrespect or clear rejection. It arrives quietly, disguised as subtle imbalance. It shows up as rereading messages to check tone, wondering if you're too much, feeling relief when someone responds, hesitating before expressing a need, questioning whether you imagined a connection. Anna recognized these sensations immediately. They were familiar. They had once been the background noise of her emotional life. Now, they felt foreign. The body never lies. One of the most profound changes in Anna was her relationship with her body. She had learned to listen, not to fear-based thoughts, but to sensations. Tightness in her chest, shallow breathing, a restless energy that wouldn't settle. These signals appeared consistently around the same type of people. Those who were unclear, inconsistent, or emotionally unavailable. Her body knew before her mind could explain. Security, she realized, is not logical. It is physiological. When someone's presence creates self, Anna reflected on how many times she had mistaken emotional chemistry for compatibility. Some people had made her feel intensely alive, but also intensely unsure. Some had sparked longing, but also anxiety. Some had drawn her in, but never grounded her. And the cost of that uncertainty had always been the same: self-doubt. She had questioned her communication, her expectations, her worth. Now, she saw it clearly. Anyone who makes you question your value is not aligned with you. Letting go without drama. Letting go at this stage did not look like confrontation. There were no speeches, no explanations, no emotional closures. Anna simply stepped back internally and externally. She stopped initiating. She stopped investing emotionally. She stopped holding space for confusion. Not because she was angry, but because she was clear. The difference between absence and peace. What surprised Anna most was how quickly peace replaced absence. She had once believed that letting go would create emptiness. Instead, it created calm. Her nervous system relaxed. Her thoughts slowed. Her energy returned. She realized that some people hadn't added to her life, they had unsettled it. Security feels boring until it feels sacred. One of the most confronting truths Anna faced was this: security didn't feel exciting at first. There were no emotional spikes, no anticipation, no fear of loss. And for a moment, she wondered if she was missing something. Then she realized what she once called passion had often been anxiety in disguise. Security felt steady, predictable, safe, and slowly, it began to feel sacred. The right people don't trigger survival mode. With the right people, Anna didn't brace herself. She didn't prepare responses. She didn't monitor her behavior. She existed. Silence didn't feel heavy. Distance didn't feel threatening. Time didn't feel like it was running out. She could breathe. That was the difference. Letting go of emotional chaos, Anna understood now that emotional chaos is not depth. Intensity is not intimacy. Longing is not love. Uncertainty is not mystery. Real connection does not destabilize you. It supports you. You don't need to be chosen again and again. One of the most painful patterns Anna released was the need to be continually chosen. By replying, by adjusting, by being patient, by understanding, the right people choose you once and keep choosing you through consistency. You don't have to earn safety. You don't have to maintain relevance. You don't have to stay small to stay included. Silence as proof of security. Silence had once been Anna's greatest trigger. Now, it was her confirmation. With the right people, silence didn't mean distance. It meant comfort. It meant trust. It meant no performance required. She didn't need to fill space to remain connected. Connection already existed. Letting go is an act of self. Anna realized that every time she stayed with someone who made her feel unsure, she betrayed herself quietly, politely, repeatedly. Letting go was not rejection. It was self-loyalty. It was choosing alignment over attachment. Peace over possibility. Truth over hope. You outgrow people without villains. There were no villains in Anna's story. Some people simply could not meet her where she now stood. Some connections belonged to an older version of herself. Some dynamics required anxiety to survive. She had evolved beyond them. The new measure of love? Anna's definition of love had changed completely. Love was no longer uncertainty, waiting, guessing, proving. Love was safety, consistency, emotional clarity, mutual presence. 11. Don't try to convince them. By the time Anna reached this stage, her life had become quiet in a way that felt intentional. Not empty, not lonely, simply unburdened. She no longer argued with herself. She no longer rehearsed conversations in her head. She no longer wondered how to make people see her. And that was how she knew something essential had changed. The exhaustion of explaining yourself. For years, Anna had believed that misunderstanding meant she hadn't explained herself well enough. If someone didn't show up, didn't choose her, didn't value her, she assumed clarity would fix it. She tried to articulate her needs more carefully. She softened her language. She offered context, patience, understanding. She believed that if she could just explain her worth clearly enough, it would be recognized. But recognition never comes from persuasion. Convincing is a form of self-abandonment. Anna now understood something she hadn't before. Trying to convince someone of your value is a quiet form of self-abandonment. It places your worth up for debate. It hands authority over your value to someone else. It asks for approval instead of alignment. Every explanation carries an unspoken message. Please see me. And the right people don't need to be persuaded to look. The shift from proving to being. There was a time when Anna measured her impact by reaction. If someone responded warmly, she felt affirmed. If they withdrew, she questioned herself. Now, her sense of self was internal. She didn't adjust her tone to be more likable. She didn't overextend to remain relevant. She didn't shrink to avoid rejection. She simply was. And being was enough. A moment of old habit. The lesson was tested unexpectedly. Someone from Anna's past reached out. Someone she had once tried desperately to be understood by. The message was polite, distant, slightly condescending in its familiarity. They misunderstood her boundaries. They minimized her growth. They questioned her choices. The old instinct stirred. Explain, clarify, defend. But Anna paused. Why was she preparing a defense for a life she was at peace with? Choosing silence over explanation. She didn't respond with paragraphs. She didn't correct assumptions. She didn't reframe the narrative. She responded briefly, kindly, clearly. And then she let it be, not because she didn't care, but because she no longer needed agreement to feel secure. You are not for everyone. This truth had once frightened Anna. She wanted to be chosen, accepted, understood. She believed that being too much or too different was a flaw. Now, she understood something liberating. Not being for everyone is not a weakness. It is precision. Compatibility is selective by nature. Resonance is rare. Alignment cannot be forced. Trying to be universally understood dilutes authenticity. The wrong audience will always miss you. No amount of explaining can create resonance where none exists. Some people are simply not equipped to receive you, not because you are lacking, but because you are different. Explaining your depth to someone who only sees surfaces will never translate. Offering your values to someone who doesn't share them will always feel like overreach. Anna stopped speaking to rooms that had already tuned her out. Self-respect looks like restraint. One of the clearest markers of Anna's growth was restraint. She no longer over-explained her decisions, justified her boundaries, defended her standards. She let her actions speak. She let consistency speak. She let silence speak. Restraint became her new language of self, letting people misunderstand you. Perhaps the hardest part of this lesson was learning to let people misunderstand her. Not everyone would get her. Not everyone would see her intentions. Not everyone would acknowledge her growth. And that was okay. Understanding is not owed. Agreement is not required. Validation is not necessary. Peace is convincing is a losing game. Anna recognized how much energy convincing had consumed in her past. Energy that could have been spent creating, loving, living. Convincing keeps you focused on others. Clarity returns you to yourself. The freedom of no longer persuading. Without the need to convince, Anna felt lighter. She spoke less, but with more intention. She chose words carefully. She stopped filling space with justification. Her presence became grounded. Her confidence, quiet. Those who matter will know. The right people didn't need explanation. They recognized her energy. They met her with curiosity instead of judgment. They responded to who she was, not who she tried to be. With them, communication was simple, natural, unforced. Power is not loud. Anna learned that power does not announce itself. It does not argue. It does not defend. It does not convince. Power stands. And those who are meant to see it will. 12. Heal your need for approval. By the time Anna reached this chapter of her life, she was no longer negotiating her worth with the world. She had stopped convincing, stopped explaining, stopped shrinking to be understood. And yet, beneath all that progress, there remained a quieter pattern. One that had shaped her choices. Long before she ever noticed it, her need for approval. It wasn't loud or obvious. It didn't show up as desperation. It lived in subtler places, in the pause before she spoke. The instinct to soften truth. The hesitation to fully stand in her decisions. And healing it required something deeper than boundaries or detachment. It required self-honesty. Approval as a survival strategy. Anna realized that her need for approval hadn't come from weakness. It had come from adaptation. As a child, she learned that being agreeable kept the peace. That being kind, understanding, and accommodating made her safe. Approval became the currency through which she navigated relationships. It taught her how to read rooms, how to anticipate needs, how to avoid conflict. And for a long time, it worked. Until it didn't. The cost of external validation. Approval had shaped her choices quietly but consistently. She stayed longer than she should have. She over-explained her boundaries. She doubted herself when others questioned her, not because she didn't know her truth, but because she feared losing connection. If she stood too firmly in it, she had confused being liked with being safe. Validation is addictive. The problem with approval is that it feels good temporarily. A compliment soothes. Recognition reassures. Acceptance calms. But the relief never lasts. The moment approval becomes your anchor. You give others the power to destabilize you. Your mood, your confidence, your sense of self begin to fluctuate based on external response. Anna saw now how often she had looked outward for confirmation, instead of inward for certainty. The turning point. The shift didn't come through rejection or loss. It came through stillness. One evening, alone in her apartment, Anna realized she felt fine. No praise, no reassurance, no validation, just presence. And for the first time, she noticed how peaceful it felt to exist without being evaluated. Learning to sit without applause. Healing the need for approval meant learning to sit with silence. Not just the silence of others, but the absence of feedback. Anna practiced making choices without announcing them, enjoying moments without documenting them, holding opinions without needing agreement. At first, It felt uncomfortable, like stepping into a room without mirrors. But slowly, something steadied, reclaiming internal authority. Anna began to ask herself different questions. Not do they approve, but does this align? Not how will this look, but how does this feel? Each time she chose alignment over approval, she strengthened her internal authority. Her life stopped being a performance. When approval no longer leads, without the need for validation, Anna spoke more slowly, thought more clearly, moved more deliberately. She no longer rushed to fill silence. She no longer chased affirmation. She no longer adjusted her truth to maintain harmony. She allowed others to react however they needed to. That was not indifference, it was freedom. Losing the audience, gaining yourself. Some people noticed the change. A few pulled away. Some were confused. Others respected her more. But Anna didn't measure her growth by reaction anymore. She measured it by how she felt afterward. Lighter, clearer, more intact. Freedom over approval. Anna learned that approval asks you to bend. Freedom asks you to stand. Approval rewards conformity. Freedom rewards authenticity.com. Approval is conditional. Freedom is self-sustaining.com. And once tasted, freedom was impossible to trade away. Confidence without noise. Her confidence was no longer performative. She didn't need to prove it. She didn't need to display it. She didn't need to defend it. It lived quietly in her posture, her pauses, her choices. Unshakable because it wasn't borrowed. The end of emotional dependency. Healing her need for approval marked the end of emotional dependency. She no longer relied on others to tell her who she was. She trusted herself. She approved of herself. And that changed everything. Unstoppable is not loud. Anna realized that being unstoppable didn't mean being invincible. It meant being no longer pulled by praise, no longer pushed by criticism, no longer shaped by expectation. She moved according to her values, not reactions. Final reflection. When you stop needing validation, you become unstoppable. Not because nothing affects you, but because nothing defines you except your truth. Approval is addictive. It keeps you seeking, adjusting, performing. Freedom is quieter, deeper, enduring. Heal your need for approval, because the moment you approve of yourself, the world loses its power to decide who you are. 13. Know this. You are the prize. By the time Anna arrived here, nothing about her life looked dramatic from the outside. There was no grand reveal, no moment of triumph that demanded applause. What existed instead was something far rarer: a quiet certainty. She no longer wondered where she stood. She no longer negotiated her worth. She no longer waited to be chosen. She had already chosen herself. The end of the chase. Once, Anna believed that love was something to pursue. That connection required effort, strategy, patience, and persistence. She believed that if she stayed long enough, tried hard enough, proved herself deeply enough, she would eventually be selected. That belief had shaped years of her life. Now, it felt foreign. She understood that chasing had never brought clarity, only exhaustion. It had never created security, only longing. And it had never led to alignment, only compromise. You don't chase what's already yours. Redefining what the prize means. Being the prize did not mean superiority. It did not mean entitlement, arrogance, or emotional distance. It did not mean being above others or withholding affection. It meant something far simpler and far more powerful. It meant self-containment. Anna knew her value without requiring recognition. She no longer offered herself as something to be evaluated, competed for, or earned. She was not a reward at the end of effort. She was a presence to be met. When worth becomes non-negotiable. In the past, Anna's worth had felt conditional. It fluctuated with attention, effort, and response. Some days she felt chosen, other days, invisible. Now, her worth was steady. It did not rise with interest. It did not fall with distance. It did not depend on consistency from others. It simply existed. And that changed the dynamic of every connection she entered. Those who see you don't make you guess. One of the clearest confirmations of this shift came through contrast. Anna noticed how differently people treated her now, not because she demanded more, but because she accepted less ambiguity. Those who were aligned showed up clearly. They didn't leave her wondering. They didn't offer mixed signals. They didn't disappear to create desire. Their interest was calm. Their presence was consistent. Their communication was There was nothing to decode. Clarity is the language of alignment. Anna had learned that confusion is not a test of patience, it is a lack of alignment. When someone truly sees you, they do not confuse you. They do not keep you guessing. They do not withhold clarity. They recognize your value intuitively and respond accordingly. The right people don't make you prove you are the prize. They treat you like one naturally. The absence of competition. Being the prize also meant leaving competition behind. Anna no longer compared herself. She no longer felt threatened by alternatives. She no longer wondered if she was enough. If someone was unsure, she didn't fight for certainty. If someone hesitated, she didn't persuade. If someone looked elsewhere, she let them go. Not with bitterness, but with peace. She knew that alignment does not require rivalry. You attract what matches you. As Anna's sense of self solidified, the people she attracted changed. They were not louder or more impressive. They were steadier, more emotionally present, more grounded. They met her where she stood without confusion or pursuit. She realized that becoming the prize was never about attracting more people. It was about attracting the right ones. Love without anxiety. Love no longer felt like effort. There was no chasing, no waiting, no wondering. There was interest, but not urgency. Desire, but not fear. Connection, but not self-betrayal. Anna could be herself fully, without strategy. Choosing from abundance. For the first time, Anna felt she was choosing from abundance, not scarcity. She didn't stay because she feared loss. She didn't settle because she feared emptiness. She didn't tolerate confusion because she feared being alone. She chose connection because it added to her life, not because it completed it. The power of walking away. Knowing she was the prize gave Anna the freedom to walk away, not dramatically, not defensively, but calmly. She no longer lingered where she was, unsure. She no longer invested where she was unchosen. She no longer waited where she was not met. Walking away was no longer loss. It was alignment. The stillness of At the center of all this change was self. Anna trusted herself to recognize clarity. She trusted herself to leave confusion. She trusted herself to wait for alignment without chasing. She no longer rushed the process. What was meant for her would meet her without force. Being seen without performance. Perhaps the most profound shift was this. Anna no longer felt the need to be impressive. She didn't perform. She didn't curate. She didn't overextend. She allowed herself to be seen as she was, calm, grounded, present. And those who resonated did so effortlessly. Not everyone will see your value. Anna accepted this truth fully. Some people would overlook her. Some would misunderstand her. Some would choose differently. And none of that diminished her worth. Value is not determined by consensus. It is not validated by attention. It is not proven by pursuit. It is inherent. The quiet confidence of knowing she was the prize, did not make Anna louder. It made her quieter, slower, more intentional. She listened more, chose carefully, spoke only when necessary. Her confidence didn't seek acknowledgement. It simply existed.